Welcome to Fulfilling This Belly Sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Like that.
Good morning and happy Wootens Day to all of you out there. I hope this week is going wonderfully and that you've received the energy that you need to be successful. Today, we want to talk about wisdom. What is it? How do we get it? And why is it so important in our everyday lives? Before I get started today, I want to, as always, give a huge shout out to all the platforms that we're broadcasting on every morning, each and every weekday morning. For those of you who need the video, we have TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and of course my friends and family at New Reality TV, newrealitytv.com, a streaming channel that offers us a plethora of spiritual perspectives, spiritual views, and certainly a very high potential of finding one of those that resonates within you and helps you to obtain or maintain your mental space. In addition, we have our audio platforms available pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of those. So for those of you who want to just listen, by all means, check those out as well. Our tip jar, available at the locations elsewhere on this morning's show. Every little bit goes to help us to produce this message electronically, and certainly the message out in public and in real life, as they say. So, by all means, every little bit goes helps. So, please feel free to donate. For those of you more interested in me, my message, my shows, information about certainly the Norse culture and our lifestyle, by all means, you can also check out my website at norsewhispers.com. There you can also find a life coaching service for those of you who may need just that extra ear to bend or that extra voice of reason to help you find your way to obtain or maintain that mental performance that you're really looking for. Today we're talking about Wotan, and we're talking about his gift to us. Each and every one of us, whether we choose to recognize the Norse gods or not, it matters not. Wotan is recognized essentially as the role model for us seeking wisdom throughout our lifetimes, knowing really that what is wisdom? Well, of course, wisdom is a connection between intellect and and knowledge and book smarts and all of the things that we've been told and taught, and experiences where we've actually experienced it and now connected this intellectual energy, if you will, to emotional energy. Now, many times people say, well, I'm not very emotional, I'm not this, I'm not that. You are, okay? Don't kid yourself. You are as emotional as anyone else. Whether you choose to recognize it, whether you choose to display it, it's completely up to you. One of the things I've been doing lately is the spirits have led me to discover emotion and really embrace it, really kind of take it into who I am as a person. It's so critical that I recognize emotional energies that drive my views, that drive my understanding of my reality that I experience. In my case, I'm simply dialing up the internet there and kind of looking at or watching videos of marriage proposals, men and women coming together in that next evolution of the display of love, or maybe even baby announcements, the arrivals of those first babies, and certainly multiple babies and whatever the like. But what we find in those videos is, if you've ever watched them, is a overwhelming sense of emotion, and that emotion is being passed through my sensory input of vision into my brain, and then, of course, with my own experiences, having my shield maiden have babies, and now my grandbabies being born. I find that there is this association with those memories that produces an emotional energy of which I think is warming of the heart. It feels very good. So I've been doing this exercise now for a couple of days in this attempt to recognize that emotional experience, that emotional energy that I'm creating, right? Because I'm obviously not there. I obviously don't know, personally, don't know the people who are getting married or having babies. But yet, my vision of watching these videos is stirring my heart to create this biochemistry that my brain recognizes as an emotion, right? So I'm finding myself very emotional during watching these videos, and it really helps me to understand how those energies affect the way I see my reality. Okay, so when I set my brain, i.e., remember we've talked about in the past where we have sensory input that comes into our physical brain. That sensory input is then passed through some filters very quickly. And I said, when we talked about it, is that these filters are more or less your mood, right? So if you wake up in a bad mood, or you're in a bad mood for some reason during the day, those experiences that we have following that will simply support that perspective, right? So if we're in a bad mood, we're grumpy, whatever, that's the way we're going to experience reality. Conversely, if we're in a good mood and life is beautiful, and I think of the young women in the videos, and they are elated, right? They are super excited. I can imagine their experiences following the moment that their to-be husbands proposed to them. Their experiences following that were blissful. They were amazing. And it didn't really matter what was others may have seen around them, right? So had the gentleman not proposed and they were just watching the beach, and yes, maybe it was wonderful being there with the significant other, enjoying the beach, the weather, whatever. And we could have had a certain set of experiences. After the proposal, the experiences went from maybe a 1 to a 10,000, or 100 to a 10,000. So we really see their perspectives of the world changing, and it definitely drives some wisdom, right? So when we're thinking about wisdom, we're thinking about intellect, knowledge, that stuff, and we're thinking about our life's experiences promoting emotions. And then those two connect up to give us this thing called wisdom. Othin, the god Othin, sought this out wherever he went. In addition, he would also have his ravens flying around the world 24/7, 365 in this further quest of his wisdom. Well, they weren't bringing back these textbooks to him. They weren't bringing back, data, right? That's not what they brought back. They brought back experiences where they witnessed something, where they heard something, where they, smelled something or tasted it, or maybe even put their talons on it. So we find that these ravens would have brought back experiences to Othin, for Othin to process. Now, in my ancestry, we're told of another story where Othin is traveling. Remember, he's the traveler, all-father, and he's going to go around all over all the realms and in disguise. And during one of these travels, he stumbles upon, or he doesn't stumble upon, he finds the Well of Erd. The Well of Erd is one of 3 wells that the roots of Yggdrasil would dip into to draw water. Well, at the same time that the root of Yggdrasil was drawing water for its own nutrition, it was also depositing the reflections of all the experiences of all of life throughout all the realms. Now, remember, in a similar story or an associated story, we're told that each of us is but a leaf on the tree of Yggdrasil, connected through our energy stream that passes from our crown chakra to our root chakra. That's our stem. And that stem goes up out of the crown, up into a branch of Yggdrasil, where our experiences of reality then transport over the branch, or through the branch, I should say, through the branch to the trunk and down to its roots, where our experiences within this life would have been reflected in this pool that Othin would drink from. Now, in this story, we see where Othin would donate one of his physical eyes that he may see using the well. Well, why would you do that? Why would you willingly give up an eye to drink from the well? Well, Othin learned that the experiences of all of life was reflected in the pool at the bottom of this well. So as he drank from this well, he was drinking all the experiences of all of life throughout Yggdrasil. As he drank it, he ingested our experiences of reality, of our world, as well as many, 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 many others. The story goes on to say that Othin would rest for 9 days and 9 nights, where he would process all of this. He would ponder deeply those thoughts that came from the Well of Erd. So he's going to sit and he's going to process all of these experiences. So think about us experiencing 1,000 lifetimes in a drink of water. When he brought in all these experiences, they had to then interrelate with other facts, with other experiences within his mind, that he may be able to use these experiences to build a much larger wisdom, a much higher wisdom. And that's what he's doing. So the example is set for us that we simply experience our lives. We are no different than Othin in that, yes, we're not getting it from a drink at the root of a tree, but we are gaining experiences in life, and these experiences are passed into our mind and our heart through our sensory input. Now, in the same way, so too does our spiritual input, push in these ideas and experiences of our ancestors, and they're coming in from our spiritual brain. And in much the same way, they're going to call upon the heart to help translate for emotional connection. Because remember, in the spiritual realm, there's no chemistry, right? So I can't make new emotions when I'm in the spiritual realm. It's right. So all I can do is remember how I felt, but I can't create new emotion, right? That's just not the way it is. Our physical form is necessary to create the chemistry that our brain then recognizes as an emotion, as a feeling, right? As an emotional state. So much the same way as we're processing these events, these experiences that we're having, our memories are sending forward this thing called imagination. Imagination is simply the drawing of memories to support whatever we're experiencing. Many times, this imagination portion of our experience is emotional energy. We're remembering how we felt. We're remembering what feelings were created by this event, whatever this event is. Okay? So it's super important that we recognize the emotional influences on everything we see, everything we experience in this lifetime. Super important. And most importantly, it's super important that we realize, or recognize, I should say, is that we just because we say we're not emotional, just because we want to be one thing or another. I think of some of the stereotypes, some of the macho stereotypes, and I say, I'm sorry you feel that way, because technically, while you may say you're non-emotional, that you may say that emotions don't affect your judgment, they do, right? So the only person in the know here that you're attempting to convince is yourself. And it's because it doesn't work for those of us who know. We understand that emotions are a very critical part of our lives. Now, the extremes are going to happen. Our mission, if you will, our desires should be to manage them in such a way that they don't dictate our lives. They simply augment. They simply support what we're seeing and what we're feeling. Okay? So, super important that we recognize that we are emotional beings at our core, very much in the same way that we're spiritual beings at our core, and that core is really what makes our experience of reality what it is. Okay? All right, we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about how you can use the experiences of Odin to start taking an active role in managing your physical reality, your interpretation of the reality that you experience every day. So, stay with us, and we'll be right back.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for taking that very quick break. And again, thank you so much to my friends and family at New Reality TV. Check them out, newrealitytv.com. You will not be disappointed. Many different perspectives. Okay, so today we're talking about how we can use our experiences to kind of begin to actively manage the way our brain interprets the reality that we're experiencing. So the first step is that we're going to recognize that the experiences that we have in life are just like a series of photographs that are happening, at a billion or maybe even a trillion frames per second. All right. So very quick, successive images that are going to come into our brain, sounds come into our ears, nose, mouth, skin, everything is going to feed in at literally a frame by frame basis. Okay. And during each of those frames, we have an emotional state. That emotional state, remember, is set in these emotional filters behind or in our brain behind our sensory input. So between the extrinsic and our brain is this filter. This filter is going to twist the image or the sound or the taste or the smell or the touch just a little bit based on our mood. All right? So if we're in a good mood, one way, bad mood, another way. Right? So super, very easy up front, but just remember that your mood dictates how you see the world. Now, from that point, the energy, we're using bioelectricity at this point because our images are not passed in. We don't print out Polaroids in our brain and pass the Polaroid over. So we're going to convert this image to a digital format, to a electric format that's represented. And that image is going to pass from this filter that we've altered the image just a little bit depending on how we're feeling. We're going to alter, and then we're going to drop that energy down into the heart. Now, the heart is going to process, and it's going to process in what my ancestors referred to as the well of the self. Okay? The well of the self is simply that. It's from a visual representation, it's a well. It's a water well, half filled with water. At the bottom of the well are rocks. And these rocks are very beautifully colored. They're very beautifully spaced around. They're a mosaic, if you will, of beautiful stones. And those stones are our values that have been given to us and that we've ascertained over the years, whatever those may be. And remember, anyone with whom we've given some level of authority has the potential of putting their values in our well. They're simply going to put a rock in the well, and it's going to fit into the pattern at the bottom. Right? The imagery here that I want to put into your mind is that this energy streak, like a lightning bolt, if you will, coming from this filter down through the water of the well to the rocks at the bottom. Now, as it hits the rocks on the bottom, it's going to create a new pattern, right, in the energy. The energy will then disband. Think of it as a light hitting a prism. And the light just goes like this, right? Well, immediately, the heart recognizes these patterns that are created by the prism, and it's going to create biochemistry. It's going to release hormones into our bloodstream. Now, this is a physiological process. We're really going to inject our system from the heart with a certain collection of hormones and other chemicals that our body makes, and it's going to go flittering around our body through the bloodstream, eventually winding up in the brain. The brain's going to recognize this biochemistry, and it's going to convert it back to energy. When it converts it back to energy, remember, at this point, we have physical things. We have imagery created through our visual input. And now we have emotional energy connected with this. So the biochemistry is simply promoting emotional energy. So all of this arrives in the part of the brain where we're simply going to convert it back to energy. So it's going to kind of go into a box where it's going to explode, if you will, and it's going to grow. There's a couple of things that we've talked about in the past that we really need to understand. Firstly and foremost, if this electrical signal doesn't come all the way down to the rocks and we decide to bail out, or exit stage left, as I like to say, by hitting the surface of the water, because the water's too murky, too cloudy, whatever, because our heart is in a quandary, which is typically going to be what causes the murkiness in the water. And that signal is going to bounce out the side. What this is going to create is silt within that explosion space. Okay, so we're going to see this rise of energy that can't erase, it can't push out, it can't move this silt that's located at the bottom, right? And so that silt will stay. Now, as it explodes, as this chemistry becomes energy again, and it's kind of expanding, we find this little space along the top of this room called our cognitive space. This is where we can say, whoa, let's manage this energy growth a little bit. Let's not allow it to just run willy-nilly. Let's chunk it down a little bit so that we're dealing with one piece at a time. Ergo, we're able to manage now this energy growth. This is what's so important about maintaining this cognitive space. This cognitive space is what allows us to break the energy down a little bit, makes it more manageable. Ultimately, as it leaves this room, your experience leaves this room, and it's on its way to your memories, it's got one more gate to pass, and that's the me gate. The me gate is where we get to decide, where we can decide that we're not going to follow generational emotional states, or maybe even the previous emotional state. We don't want to be sad anymore. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be mad. We can make that decision. We have the authority to change this energy. You have the authority and all the wherewithal to make the change, to change the energy from a negative to a positive, from a neutral to a positive, right? In much the same way, humans, and this is restricted to humans, humans can make it from positive to negative or positive to neutral, okay? Neutral energy is much more prone to becoming negative, whereas positive energy is a little less prone because it has to do the steps, right? So positive, neutral, negative, positive, neutral, negative. If we have more positive, we're going to pull up the negatives into a neutral, ultimately pulling it from a neutral to a positive. Conversely, if we're being negative and the world is really against us, any positives we have, we may neutralize them and or ultimately move them from a neutral to a negative. We have that power. You have that power. So, our experiences drive our emotional states. Our experiences and our decision that mediate also sets the emotional filters behind our sensory input. So we're essentially changing the way our brain will change our perception of reality. That's what we do. That's what humans do. So it's super critical that we understand that we have the authority, that we have all the tools that we need every minute of every day to force ourselves to see reality in a different way, to see reality in a positive way versus a negative one. Or if we want, we can certainly see it in a negative way instead of a positive. We can make this choice. We can choose. Now, what helps us to choose? It could be the experience, or it could be just the desire to be happy. Just the desire to move negative to positive that will enact itself upon that energy. So, our perception is based on our experiences. Our experiences drive our emotional state, which then alters future experiences. This is the knowledge that Othin sought. This is what Othin knew was the importance of experiences, of emotional experiences. He knew that if he had these experiences, his emotional state could be placed in such a way that he could see what he wanted. He wasn't trapped into other people's views. You have that same power, and I hope you use it. Well, today as we celebrate Wotan's Day and we embrace the god Wotan, I pray that you too can have a moment today where you realize how much power you have in your mental space. Being happy, being content, being comfortable, being harmonious. All of these things are within your power to do. You don't need anyone else telling you. You don't need to measure up to anyone else's bar or anyone else's measuring stick. You have the tools to do this. All right? So I hope that you will take some time today. Do some intrinsic reflection. Look at yourself and say, wait, I want to be happy. I want to be content. Or I want to make my significant other happy or content or comfortable or peaceful. All right? I want to promote that energy. Because remember, whatever energy state that we're in, we're emitting. Right? So our friends and our family and even strangers can be affected by this energy. So what beacon are you? Right? And that's a decision that you can make every minute of every day. All right? So I hope you use that. Tonight, no Borgsmall. We're going to be off the air this evening. We have some other things going on, and I deeply apologize. But we will see you again tomorrow morning as we discuss the power of Thor, the strength of Thor, and not only his physical strength, but his mental strength. It's so critical that we understand his role modeling of not only his physical strength, but the mental strength that he used to get there. Determination, they called it. Commitment, they called it. All of these things are capable with mental strength. So we'll talk about how to exercise that and how to build that up, how to use it for your advantage. All right? So enjoy the rest of Wotan's Day, and we will see you again tomorrow where we will discuss Thor and the strength of Thor. Love and light, my friends.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Ulf Hefnar in south central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.